I'm Caroline Monroe, 31 years old, and I remember exactly where I was when the doctor told me I needed open heart surgery. The smell of antiseptic, the hum of fluorescent lights, and the look on his face kind but heavy. "We can't wait too long," he said. "You're on borrowed time now." I had worked hard for everything: a solid career in marketing, a bright apartment in downtown Boston, a life I was proud of. And in an instant, it all narrowed to a single calendar date, June 14th, the day I was supposed to be in a hospital gown, not a bridesmaid dress. The day my parents chose a wedding over their daughter's life. Before I go any further, drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from, and hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever had to stand up to family who took you for granted. I was raised in northern Connecticut, the older of two girls. My parents, Paul and Margaret, always told us we were a good family, meaning we minded our manners, said Grace at dinner, and showed up when it counted. At least that was the idea. I learned to take care of things early. Keep your grades up. Don't make trouble. Help where you can. Vanessa. My younger sister had more room to wander. She liked the spotlight, the kind of girl who knew how to turn heads at school plays and charm her way out of curfews. Still, I never questioned it much. I figured we all played our part. I got through college on scholarships and side jobs, landed a junior role at a media firm in Boston, and kept climbing. By 29, I was managing national campaigns and renting my own place near Beacon Hill. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. The symptoms started small. I'd lose my breath climbing the stairs, feel my chest tighten halfway through a jog. I chalked it up to stress. But then I collapsed during a client pitch right there in the boardroom and woke up in a hospital bed hooked to machines. A few days of testing led to a diagnosis I didn't expect: a rare congenital heart defect that had gone undetected for years. Dr. Adam Bennett, my cardiologist, laid it out as gently as he could. I needed surgery within the month. He walked me through the risks, the recovery, the numbers: 85% success if we acted soon. The longer we waited, the steeper the drop. He offered a date, June 14th. I froze. That was Vanessa's wedding weekend. She'd been planning it for over a year, a big destination event on the coast of California. Wine country, designer gowns, every detail fussed over since the day she got the ring. That night, I sat at my kitchen table with the phone in my hand, rehearsing what to say. My parents had already spent nearly $60,000 on the wedding. They were in Napa, already helping Vanessa with final walkthroughs and spa packages. My dad picked up. "Hey, kiddo," he said. "Your mom's trying to seat you near the Hendersons. You remember their son from college, right?" "Dad, can you put me on speaker?" I told them everything. The diagnosis, the urgency, the date. For a moment, I heard what sounded like real concern. My mother's voice caught. My father asked questions, scribbled notes, promised they'd catch the first flight home. "Family comes first," my mom said, and I wanted to believe her. 3 days later, they called a family Zoom. Vanessa dialed in from her bridal suite wearing silk and a scowl. My parents sat on a sunny porch somewhere in wine country. My father cleared his throat. "We've talked it over," he said, "and we think this is the best plan for everyone." My mother jumped in. "Your Aunt Diane's going to fly out and stay with you? She's very capable, raised 4 boys, remember?" I stared at the screen. "You're still going," I said. "She's only getting married once," my mother said, twisting her necklace, "and so many guests are already flying in." My sister rolled her eyes. "It's just a routine surgery, right? Don't be dramatic." I didn't argue. I didn't scream. I ended the call and stared at the blank screen long after their faces disappeared. That was the night the silence in my apartment felt heavier than ever. I'd been the steady one, the one who didn't make waves, and somehow I'd still become the afterthought. The surgery date stayed. So did I. And on the morning of June 14th, as the sun rose over Boston, I scrolled through photos from the wedding I wasn't invited to, while nurses prepped me for open-heart surgery. The last photo I saw before they rolled me into surgery was of Vanessa standing barefoot in the sand, a white lace train spilling behind her, my parents on either side of her with champagne in their hands. Everyone was smiling. The caption read, "The perfect day for our perfect girl." A nurse reached for my phone. I handed it over, fingers stiff from the IV. She asked if anyone else would be joining my friend in the waiting room. "No," I said. "No one else is coming." She nodded, adjusted the blanket around my legs, and walked alongside as they wheeled me down the corridor. The anesthesiologist started his countdown. I only made it to 7 before the room disappeared. The surgery took 12 hours. I was told later that they almost lost me twice. There had been complications. I remember flashes, a monitor beeping too fast, the bitter taste of something metallic in my mouth, pressure on my chest so strong I thought I was drowning. And then finally, waking up to the blurry outline of Maya's face, her curls pulled back dark circles under her eyes, her hand wrapped around mine. "Hey there, fighter," she whispered. "You made it." I couldn't speak. My throat was raw from the tube. She offered a spoonful of ice chips and quietly explained that the procedure had been more complicated than expected, but Dr. Bennett believed the repair had worked. She added gently, "Your parents called. They send their love. Your mom said they'll try to FaceTime after the reception." A few hours later, Aunt Diane came by with a casserole I wouldn't be allowed to eat for weeks. She stayed less than an hour. Before she left, she reminded me about her Alaskan cruise with the church group. "But I've arranged a home health aide to check in. Your parents are covering it." Then she patted my hand and told me they cared. After she left, I lay there watching the ceiling tiles blur. The movement of crying sent a sharp ache through my chest. Maya adjusted the pillows, held my hand again. "They're not worth your tears," she said. Over the next 2 weeks, she became my anchor. She never left. She slept in the hospital recliner, reminded the nurses when my medication was late, made sure I ate something. She worked remotely from the room, took meetings with her laptop balanced on her knees, and still found time to help me walk the hallway when it was time for rehab. I had an infection along the incision line that required another small procedure. The antibiotics made me sick. Every time I vomited, I felt like my chest was splitting open again. I had to be fitted with a monitor for my heart rhythm twice a day. They checked and adjusted the settings. Through all of it, the phone stayed quiet. A few texts from my parents, short ones. "Thinking of you. Prayers for healing." Flowers arrived from the entire wedding party with a card signed Team Vanessa. Vanessa herself called once from her honeymoon. It was a short conversation. "Brendan's vows were perfect," she said. "The sunset during our first dance like a movie." I didn't say much. She didn't ask. At one point I whispered I almost died. She laughed a little uncomfortable. "Mom said it all went fine. Anyway, we've got a couple's massage in 5 minutes. Love you, sis." 3 weeks after surgery, they sent me home. The hospital gave me a long list of instructions and a temporary monitor that clipped to my waistband. I couldn't climb stairs. My third-floor apartment was out of the question. Maya found a short-term rental on the ground floor. She called in a few co-workers to help move my essentials. She stocked the fridge, arranged for a nurse to stop by daily, and stayed with me until I could manage alone. Dr. Bennett came by the day after I got home. He said he was just checking the incision, but he brought coffee from the place near the hospital, sat with me on the balcony for nearly an hour. He talked about his daughter, about hiking trails in New Hampshire. Nothing about surgery. The home health aide, Patricia, was kind, efficient. She showed up every morning, changed the dressing, recorded the readings, asked if I'd eaten. The nights were the hardest. I couldn't sleep. I had dreams about the surgery, being back on the table, being left alone. I'd wake up drenched in sweat, heart pounding, afraid the monitor would start beeping again. 6 weeks after surgery, my parents came back from Europe. They visited once. They brought me a bottle of olive oil from Greece and a decorative wine stopper from Santorini. My mother looked at the scar above my shirt collar and blinked too quickly. My father complimented the view from the apartment. "It's a shame you missed the ceremony," he said. "It really was beautiful." They stayed maybe 40 minutes. After they left, I sat on the couch for a long time. Then I blocked their numbers and sent one message: I need time to heal in every way. Please respect my space. That night, Maya and I sat on the balcony as the sun set. She handed me a blanket even though it was still warm out. "I'm done," I told her. "I can't keep trying to earn something that's not there." She nodded. "What's next?" she asked. I looked out over the trees and the streetlights coming on below us. "I rebuild," I said, "but this time on my terms." The apartment in Cambridge overlooked the river. It wasn't anything fancy. 2 bedrooms, hardwood floors, a small balcony just wide enough for a table and 2 chairs. But it was mine. After the surgery, after the silence, after the decision to stop trying to belong where I wasn't seen, this place marked something new. It had been 3 years since I sent that final message to my parents. No drama, no long explanations, just space. And in that time, I rebuilt. At work, I took on more responsibility, moved up, and was promoted to senior director at Horizon Media. The raise helped me finally decorate the way I wanted: framed prints from local artists' plants that actually stayed alive, warm lighting, instead of overhead fluorescence. On the bookshelf were pictures of people who'd stayed. Maya and her fiancé Zach helping me build a snowman last winter. Parker and Luis laughing at my birthday dinner. Reed, Dr. Bennett captured mid-laugh on a hiking trip we took to the White Mountains, once I'd been cleared for strenuous activity. The scar on my chest had faded from angry red to pale pink. I could wear V-neck shirts again without flinching. Sometimes I'd catch a glimpse of it in the mirror and just trace the line with my finger. Not to feel sad, but to remember. That line meant I'd made it, on my own. Friday nights had turned into a ritual. Maya and Zach would come over sometimes, Reed sometimes a few coworkers. We'd talk about the week-past plates around the table until there was nothing left but crumbs and stories. It wasn't loud. It wasn't perfect. But it felt like home. That night, Maya passed me the pasta dish and raised her eyebrows. "You zoning out again?" I blinked and smiled. "Just thinking about the meeting tomorrow." She nodded. "Support group." "Yeah, we've got a few new folks coming in. One of them's a 19-year-old with almost the exact same diagnosis I had. She reminds me of me, only younger and braver." "You're doing something real," Reed said. He sat across from me, his arm resting along the back of my chair. "She's lucky to have you." He wasn't just being polite. The group Heart Forward had started small, a few patients swapping notes over coffee, but it had grown. We'd partnered with local hospitals, hosted guest speakers, even landed a small grant to expand services. Every month we welcomed more people. Some came scared. Some came with spouses who did all the talking. Some didn't say much at all, just listened. "Speaking of grants," Zach said, reaching for another roll. "That pediatric program you applied for fully funded. They made the announcement today." I set down my fork. "Seriously?" He nodded. "It's official." That night, after everyone left, Reed stayed behind to help clean up. We moved easily around the kitchen, him rinsing dishes, me stacking leftovers into containers. The rhythm felt familiar now. My phone buzzed on the counter. Unknown number, 1 voicemail. "Probably spam," I said, drying my hands, but something made me press play. "Caroline, it's Mom." The voice was different, slower, strained. "I know it's been a long time, and that's our fault. We've been thinking a lot, and we'd like to see you. Please call us back. It's important. I didn't say anything right away, just set the phone down, still damp from the dish towel. Reed turned off the faucet. Bad news. My mother, I said. First contact in 3 years. He nodded once. You gonna call her back? I don't know. I went to bed early, but I didn't sleep. At 7:12 the next morning, someone knocked on my door. Hard, not a neighbor. I looked through the peephole. It was them. Both of them. Paul and Margaret Monroe, my parents. They looked older, thinner. My dad's face had hollowed out beneath his beard. My mom's silver hair was pulled back in a clip, and she wore the same pearl necklace I remembered from holidays and fundraisers. I opened the door slowly. Caroline, she breathed. They stepped into the apartment as if unsure of their footing. My mother took in the space with wide eyes. "This is lovely," she said. "Very sophisticated." I didn't offer coffee, but they asked anyway. I set 2 mugs in front of them and waited. My father spoke first. "You look well." "I am." There was a long pause. "We've been following your work," my mother said. "Your name came up in that article about the marketing campaign. It was impressive. They didn't ask about the recovery. They didn't ask what it was like waking up alone after surgery, but I didn't expect them to. Eventually I asked, 'How's Vanessa?' They looked at each other. 'She's adjusting,' my mother said. 'The divorce was finalized last month.' I nodded. 'I'm sorry to hear that.' My father cleared his throat. 'Actually, that's partly why we're here.' I waited. 'She's had to downsize,' he said. Brendan's lawyer was aggressive. 'She's struggling. We thought maybe with your second bedroom, she could stay here for a while.' I didn't answer right away. 'I use that room for work,' I said. 'It's not an option.' He tried to pivot. 'Caroline family helps each other. Like you helped me during my surgery.' My mother looked away. 'We made a mistake,' she said, 'but we're here to make it right.' There was a beat of silence. 'There's more,' my father said quietly. 6 months ago, I was diagnosed with the same condition you had.' I looked at him, really looked. He unbuttoned the top of his shirt and pulled it back just enough to reveal the start of a surgical scar. It mirrored mine. 'They want to do the procedure soon,' he said. 'But there's a waiting list. Your doctor, Dr. Bennett, he's hard to reach. We were hoping maybe you could talk to him.' He hesitated. 'And help with the cost. Even with insurance, there are gaps. The kind of care I need, it adds up.' It wasn't lost on me. They hadn't come to rebuild anything. They'd come for my contacts, my money, my influence. I stood. 'I need time to think,' I said. They left a card on the table with their new phone numbers. My mom squeezed my hand. My dad mumbled something about hoping to hear from me soon. When the door closed, the apartment felt different, heavier. I picked up my keys and walked down to the riverside path. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Maya. SOS, dinner. Bringing Thai and wine. I texted back one word. Come. By the time Maya showed up with Thai takeout and 2 bottles of Riesling, I had walked the river path twice and still couldn't slow my thoughts. She didn't ask questions right away, just unpacked the food, filled our glasses, and set the table like we'd done 100 times before. "Start wherever you need to," she said, pulling her legs up under her on the couch. I told her everything. The knock at the door, the look on my father's face when he showed me the scar, the way my mother called the apartment sophisticated as if that meant something, how they said they'd like to make amends, but then asked for medical favors and financial help before even asking how I'd been. "They want you to call in a favor with Reed?" she asked. I nodded, and maybe more than that. There was a hint about the costs, about needing help. Maya opened the second container, handing me a plate. You thinking about helping? I don't know, I said. The silence stretched. Then she added, if the roles were reversed, would they help you? She didn't say it like a trap, just a quiet question. I didn't answer right away. That night I barely slept. I kept going back to the hospital, not in memory, but in dreams. I was back in the operating room. Same chill in the air, same lights overhead. But this time, when I woke up, there was no one. The room was dark. No beeping, no nurses, no Maya. Just the hum of machines and my voice calling into silence. The next morning, I called Reed. I'm not asking you to treat him, I said. I'm just trying to understand the situation from the medical side. He listened without interrupting. When I finished, he said, if your father qualifies for care, that'll be decided based on his condition, not on who he knows. He paused. Whatever you choose, don't let guilt be the reason. Later that day, I met with Victoria, my financial advisor. We sat across from each other in her office while she pulled up my portfolio on the screen. You could help them, she said. It wouldn't put you in debt, but it would set your other plans back. The sabbatical, the condo, some of the foundation growth projections. I nodded. That's what I needed to know. The last stop was Dr. Klein. We'd been working together since my recovery, first through grief, then into something more stable. What would forgiveness look like? She asked, notebook in hand. I don't know if it's forgiveness, I said, but I don't want to carry this around forever, and I don't want to become what I hated. There's a difference, she said, between setting boundaries and turning cold. She leaned back slightly. Have you talked to your sister? Not since the wedding. It might help, she said. That evening, I sat on the couch and stared at my phone. Then I typed out the message. We should talk. Coffee tomorrow. The reply came 5 minutes later. Yes, please. Name the place. I chose a small cafe on the corner of Hampshire and Cambridge. Quiet, lots of windows. I got there early and picked a table near the back. When Vanessa walked in, I barely recognized her. She was thinner, her hair pulled back in a plain ponytail, jeans and a gray sweater, no designer purse, no makeup, no heels, just her. Thanks for meeting me, she said, sliding into the seat across from mine. We made small talk at first. Weather, the pastries. I waited. She did too. Then I said Mom and Dad came to see me. She nodded slowly. They told me. They mentioned your divorce. Her eyes dropped to her cup. It got ugly, she said. Brendan left, took most of what wasn't nailed down. She looked up again. They want your help. They always do. She didn't argue, just stared into her coffee. I told them not to ask you for anything on my behalf, she said. That wasn't me. Why are you here then? She hesitated. Because I owe you an apology. For what? For the wedding. I waited. I knew about your surgery before I picked the date, she said. Mom mentioned you were having tests, so I called the hospital, pretended to be your emergency contact. They told me. I sat back unsure what to say. I scheduled it that weekend on purpose, she said, because I was jealous. You got things I never could earn. Attention, respect, independence. She took a breath. When you got that promotion, they wouldn't stop talking about it. So I made sure they had to choose. You knew they'd pick you. They always did. I looked at her, really looked, and for the first time I saw it. The sadness under the pride, the insecurity under the performance. You don't know what it was like, I said, to go through that recovery alone, to wake up and see pictures of all of you celebrating while I was barely breathing. She nodded. I know. I almost didn't make it. I heard she whispered. They were going to leave the reception when they heard about the complications. But then the hospital said you were stable. We sat for a moment, letting the quiet settle. They told me you refused to help, she said. Said you turned them away. I told them I needed time. She nodded. They're still doing it, playing us off each other. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. I'm not asking for anything, she added. Not a place to stay, not money. I just wanted you to hear it from me. I looked down at my hands. This doesn't fix anything. I know, she said, but maybe it's a start. We finished our coffee. She stood first. If you ever want to talk again, I'd like that. I nodded once. After she left, I sat for a long time before texting Maya. Met with Vanessa. It's time to make a plan. The next morning, Maya and I sat at her kitchen table, 2 mugs of coffee between us and a legal pad already covered in notes. She tapped the pen against the edge of the table, thinking. They're going to guilt you, she said. Bring up everything they ever paid for. Remind you that they raised you, put food on the table. They already have, I said. That came up during the visit. Maya circled something on the pad. What's the absolute minimum you're willing to do? Give them information, I said. Programs, referrals, options they can follow up on themselves. And maximum, I paused. Maybe limited financial help, but only with boundaries in place, and if they actually acknowledge what happened. Maya nodded. That gives you structure. Don't let the conversation slide into old patterns. Later that day, I met Reed for dinner at his place. We ate on the small patio behind his building, grilled chicken vegetables, nothing fancy. He had a folder waiting for me filled with medical journal articles and trial summaries. There's a new study at Mass General, he said. Patients with your father's condition are showing strong responses to a different surgical protocol. It's still early, but the outcomes are promising. Would he qualify? Based on what you told me, probably. The trial's fully funded too, no cost if he gets in, and you wouldn't need to be involved. No. I can provide the referral, but the process is independent. That avoids conflict. I reached for the folder. Thank you. He poured more water into my glass. You're not responsible for what they did, but I know you want to handle this carefully. The following afternoon, I had lunch with Parker. His husband, Luis, worked in nonprofit healthcare law and had offered to put me in touch with someone who could help. If you end up giving money, Parker said, have them sign something. Doesn't have to be complicated. Just a written agreement that lays out what you're covering and for how long. He handed me a card. Luis knows a mediator who handles family financial arrangements. She's solid. No nonsense. That evening I sat on my living room floor with a stack of folders and 2 empty cups of tea. I sorted everything, the clinical trial documents, financial assistance programs, my own old medical bills from the surgery 3 years ago, itemized invoices, out-of-pocket costs, transportation receipts, pharmacy charges. I printed out copies and labeled each section. By the end of the week, I had everything prepared. I booked a private room at Riverview, a quiet restaurant on the edge of town. Neutral ground. Maya called the night before. You sure you want to do this alone? I have to, I said. But I might call after. She paused. I'll be up. I spent the evening reviewing notes, sipping herbal tea. Just before bed, I got a text from Vanessa. Whatever you decide tomorrow, I support you. They don't get to dictate the terms anymore. The next morning, I dressed carefully. Black slacks, a fitted blazer, a blouse that didn't quite cover the scar at my collarbone. I didn't hide it. I wasn't hiding anything. When I arrived at the restaurant, the room was already set up, water on the table menus tucked into linen folds. I placed the folders in a neat stack and waited. They arrived 2 minutes late, both of them, and unexpectedly Vanessa. I hope it's okay, she said quietly, taking the seat beside me. I thought it was time we all sat down. Our parents didn't object, but they looked surprised. My father straightened his shoulders. Caroline, we're grateful you agreed to meet. We're hoping you've had time to think. I nodded. I have. But before we get into that, I need to lay out a few things. I slid the first folder across the table. This is information about a clinical trial at Mass General. It's specifically designed for patients with your diagnosis. If accepted, treatment is covered in full." He looked at the cover page, then pushed it slightly aside. "I was hoping for something more established. I'd prefer Dr. Bennett." "Dr. Bennett doesn't take direct referrals from personal contacts," I said. "He doesn't prioritize patients based on relationships. If you want to work with him, you'll need to go through the usual channels." My mother opened her mouth, then closed it again. I placed the next document between them. "This is a guide to the Cardiac Patient Advocacy Network. They can help you understand your options, insurance coverage, medical grants, travel support. It's all here." They looked at each other. My father's jaw tightened. "We were hoping you'd help," my mother said gently. "With the actual logistics, we're feeling overwhelmed." "I understand," I said. "But when I went through this, I managed it without your help." My father cleared his throat. "That was different. We had Vanessa's wedding. It was a complicated time." "I chose that date intentionally," Vanessa said quietly. "I already told Caroline." My mother turned sharply. "Vanessa, that's not—" "It's the truth," she said. "You can pretend it wasn't, but we all know what happened." "We're not here to talk about the past," my father said firmly. "We need to move forward." "The past is why we're here," I said. "It's not about blame. It's about patterns." I pulled out another sheet, a spreadsheet this time. This is what my recovery cost, not just financially, but practically. 43 follow-up appointments, infection treatment, round-the-clock home care, most of it handled by friends. My mother stared at the numbers. "We didn't realize. You never asked." They were quiet. "I've considered your request," I said, "and I'm prepared to help under certain conditions." I passed them a final document. "I've created a temporary family medical support fund. It can provide up to $50,000 toward your out-of-pocket costs. But in order to access it, you'll need to agree to financial counseling and submit a treatment budget. This isn't open-ended." My father's eyes darkened. "We don't need therapy. We need support. These are the terms," I said. "You can accept them or not." "I'm not offering housing to Vanessa either," I added. "But I can help her find local resources, if she wants them." Vanessa nodded. "I've already found a place, and I start a new job next week. I don't want their help." My mother's eyes filled. "Caroline, we're your parents. How can you treat us like strangers? You treated me like a stranger when I was in recovery. I'm offering help, but in a way that protects my health, too." My father stood abruptly. "Come on, Margaret, this isn't a negotiation." She looked between the three of us. "Thomas, maybe we should—" I said, "We're done." He turned to Vanessa. "Are you coming?" She didn't move. "No." His expression hardened. "Don't expect us to bail you out later." "I won't," she said. After they left, the room was quiet again. Vanessa sat back in her chair. "Are you okay?" I looked at the space where they'd been sitting. "I think I am." After the meeting at Riverview, Vanessa and I walked to the parking lot in silence. The sky had darkened, but the air still held the last traces of late summer. She stood beside her car for a long moment before turning to me. "Thank you," she said, "for letting me be there." I nodded. I wasn't sure how it would go. She opened her car door, then paused. "If anything comes up. I mean, if you need someone to talk it through with again, I'm around." "I know." She gave a small wave and pulled away. I stayed where I was for a minute, listening to the quiet hum of cars in the distance. Back at home, I poured a glass of water and set my folders on the table. I hadn't expected to feel relief, but there it was, subtle, steady quiet. A few days later, I received confirmation that my father had applied for the clinical trial. The hospital sent a form letter thanking me for the referral and confirming that his records had been reviewed. He hadn't applied to the family fund. I wasn't surprised. That weekend, Maya and I met for coffee. We sat near the window watching people walk by with shopping bags and strollers. "Did you hear anything from them?" she asked. "Just the trial confirmation." She sipped her latte. "How did you feel after the meeting?" "Clear," I said. "Like something had been put down. I didn't know I was still carrying." She nodded. "That's a good sign." That night, Reed came over for dinner. We made grilled salmon and roasted vegetables, then sat on the couch, watching a documentary he'd been wanting to show me. At one point, I leaned against his shoulder, and he reached for my hand, lacing his fingers through mine. "Have I told you lately how proud I am of you?" he asked. I looked at him. "No," I said. "But I'm glad you did." The next morning, I sat down at my desk to go through a stack of patient cases submitted to Heart Forward. Every month, we reviewed applications and discussed how best to distribute funds. That week, we'd received a special request, a man in his 60s, diagnosed with a congenital heart condition, struggling to cover post-op recovery costs after complications. The name wasn't familiar, and I hadn't reviewed the file until that morning. I scanned the summary, the income documentation, the supporting notes from his caseworker. It wasn't my father, but it was someone's. Someone who, like me, had gone through surgery and had no one waiting on the other side. I signed the approval and forwarded it to our coordinator. Later that week, I met Vanessa for lunch. She'd started a new job at a small design studio and had found a rental in Somerville with 2 roommates and an old cat that hated closed doors. She looked different, tired maybe, but solid. "I like it," she said. "For now. It's small, but it's mine." "I get that," I said. She pushed her salad around for a moment before asking, "Did they reach out again?" "Not directly." We finished eating, and as we were walking back toward the street, she stopped suddenly. "I know this doesn't fix things," she said, "but it means something to me that you're giving me another chance." I didn't say anything right away, just looked at her. "I'm not doing this for them," I said finally. "I know." As the days turned colder, Heart Forward received a new round of funding. We expanded our counseling partnerships and hired a part-time nurse advocate to work with incoming families. Reed helped us identify gaps in post-surgical care for lower-income patients, and Maya continued volunteering on weekends, helping with communications and outreach. It wasn't the life I had imagined in my 20s: promotions, corner offices, corporate retreats, but it felt like the right one. The holidays came and went quietly. No cards from my parents, no calls, but there were phone messages from patients we'd helped, some handwritten thank you notes, and a package from one woman who'd sewn small, heart-shaped pillows for our recovery kits. Vanessa and I started meeting regularly, sometimes for coffee, sometimes a quick dinner, sometimes just a walk by the river. We didn't talk about the past unless it came up naturally. We weren't trying to rewrite anything, just write something new. One afternoon in early spring, I came home to find a note taped to my door. No return address. Just a single page folded in half. It was from my father. He thanked me for the trial information, said he'd been accepted, the surgery was scheduled, he didn't ask for anything else, he signed it Paul, no dad, no love, just his name. I left it on the counter and didn't respond. That weekend, Reed and I drove up to the mountains. We stayed in a quiet cabin just past Conway, close to a trail he liked for spring hikes. We didn't talk much on the drive. We didn't need to. We reached the ridge just before sunset, and he pointed out the markers I hadn't noticed, worn signs nailed into trees, a patch of moss that always grew in the same direction, even when the trail curved. "Funny how things keep going," he said, "even when we think they won't." I looked out over the valley below us, quiet and still. "They do," I said. 3 months later, I stood beside Maya in the bridal suite, gently adjusting her veil while she checked her reflection one last time. The chapel below us had filled quickly, friends, family, co-workers. Reed was already seated near the front, saving me a place beside him. "You nervous?" I asked, smoothing the hem of her gown. "Not even a little," she said. "Some things just feel right." As her maid of honor, I'd helped plan every detail, not just the flowers and music, but the pieces that mattered more. The readings, the seating chart, the playlist she'd picked with Zach over late-night takeout on my living room floor. When the coordinator gave us the cue, I took my place in the procession and glanced out at the guests. Familiar faces smiled back. People who had stood by us, stayed, chosen. I caught Reed's eye as I walked past. His expression was warm, steady, that look he gave when he didn't need to say anything out loud. After the ceremony, while Maya and Zach greeted guests outside, I stepped into the reception hall to check final details. The caterers were moving quietly between tables. The music had started, just background for now, soft piano. Reed found me near the dessert table. "She was radiant," he said, handing me a glass of water. "She really was." He touched my arm lightly. "I got your update about the Foundation's new approval list." Impressive. We had recently finalized a round of grants through Heart Forward. One in particular had caught my attention, a man in his 60s with no family to speak of, and a nearly identical heart condition to mine. His case had come through one of our hospital partners. The committee had approved it without my input, but I'd recognized the chart notes instantly. I hadn't needed to be involved. That was the point. Later during the reception, Reed and I slipped onto the dance floor. The lights had dimmed, and a slow song filled the room. His hand rested gently at my waist. My left hand fit naturally into his. No performance, no pretending. "Have I told you today how extraordinary you are?" he said quietly. I smiled. Not long after the wedding, I received word through one of the hospital liaisons that my father had undergone surgery. It had gone well. He was recovering steadily. No further contact followed. No letters, no updates. I didn't expect any. Vanessa and I continued to meet once a week. Coffee mostly, sometimes dinner, sometimes nothing more than a walk by the river or a check-in text. One afternoon, she brought an old photo album. The leather cover was cracked, the pages filled with pictures from birthdays and school plays, moments I'd nearly forgotten. We sat on my balcony, turning each page in quiet. "Do you remember this?" she asked, pointing to a photo of the two of us in matching Easter dresses. I was holding her hand. She had chocolate on her face. "I do now." She closed the album. "I still have a lot to figure out. We both do. We didn't make promises. We didn't try to fix everything. But for the first time, we were honest. That was enough." At Heart Forward, we launched a new pilot program pairing patients with trained volunteers for recovery support. Maya took the lead on coordinating schedules. Reed offered to mentor our incoming medical advisor. Even Zach pitched in with transportation logistics. The work wasn't flashy. Most of it happened behind the scenes: phone calls, grant forms, quiet advocacy. But it was steady, and every time I opened a thank you letter or saw a new referral come in, I remembered why I'd started it. We weren't just helping people get through surgery, we were helping them feel less alone. That fall, we hosted our first fundraising dinner. It was small, just 60 people, but meaningful. Testimonials, quiet conversations, people who cared enough to show up. Reed gave a short speech that evening. He spoke about the importance of dignity and care, about how showing up for someone even once can shift their entire path. Then he looked at me and raised his glass. "To those who turn their pain into purpose," he said. The room lifted their glasses with him. I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. That night back at home, I took off my earrings and stood in front of the mirror. The scar was still there, lighter now, almost faint. But I could still trace it. Not to remember the surgery, but the recovery. the long, hard stretch between who I was and who I'd become. The night of the fundraiser, after the last guest had gone and the catering staff was packing up, I walked through the empty hall one last time. The tables were cleared, the lights dimmed low. A few thank you cards lay beside the podium, and I picked one up, tracing the handwritten note inside. Outside, the air was crisp, one of those early fall nights that feels like a pause between seasons. Reed met me at the door, offering my coat without a word. We walked to the car in silence, his hand steady at the small of my back. It was the kind of silence that comes with knowing someone truly sees you. The next morning, I stood on my balcony with a cup of coffee, watching the river move slow and steady beneath the overpass. Leaves had started to turn small bursts of color, lining the banks. I thought about everything that had changed since that surgery, the one they said I might not wake up from. It wasn't just the physical healing. It was everything that came after. The long, quiet rebuilding of a life that finally belonged to me. Vanessa texted later that afternoon. Just a photo, her cat curled up on a windowsill, eyes half closed, soaking in the sun. She likes the morning light, the message said. I smiled, then set the phone down. No reply needed. Some things didn't have to be spelled out anymore. The final update from the hospital came the following week. My father's recovery had gone smoothly. His chart was stable, his follow-ups routine. No additional support requested, no calls, no notes. And that was okay. I hadn't offered help to punish him. I hadn't set boundaries to build walls. I did it because healing, real healing, needs truth. And truth doesn't always come with reconciliation. Sometimes it comes with distance, with choosing peace over permission. I hadn't just survived. I had built something out of the silence they left behind. A foundation literally and emotionally rooted in purpose, community, and care. And I had found my people. Maya Reed, Zach, the patients we'd helped, the colleagues who showed up without ever being asked. They were never in the wedding photos or the childhood albums, but they were in every page of the life I chose for myself. There's a kind of strength that comes not from being tough, but from staying soft, from choosing empathy, even when you've been hurt. It's not always easy, but it's worth it. Not long ago, I believed family was something you were born into. Now I understand it's something you build, and sometimes the most powerful justice isn't in what you take back, it's in what you grow beyond. If you've ever had to set boundaries with the people who raised you, or found healing through the ones who stood by you instead, I'd love to hear your story. Share it in the comments, and if this journey spoke to you, feel free to subscribe for more stories like this one. Thanks for listening, and wherever you are in your story, keep going. You're not alone.